Out of the Ordinary Insights, brought to you by Investec Specialist Bank.
To you from Investec in Cape Town. Joining me this evening are my esteemed panelists. Starting to my immediate right, I am joined by Hassan Adams. He is Executive Chairman, Grand Parade Investments Limited. To his right is Dr. Iqbal Surve, Chairman of the Sekunjalo Group. Arnold Goldstone, who is CEO of Invicta and Mustaq Brey, who is CEO of Brimstone Investment Corporation. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining me this evening. We're going to flip into World Economic Forum style right now. Iqbal, you are familiar with this, where I get you gentlemen to introduce yourselves to our audience this evening. You're captains of industry, you are heroes of today. We want to know how you have got here and what lessons you can share with our audience this evening to ensure that they follow in your footsteps. Hassan, I'm going to start with you. If you can give us a brief overview of your positioning today and how you got there.
Thanks, Bronwyn, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm an engineer by profession. Started off in the consulting engineering business, and I still run my practice on the side here. Don't get involved quite a lot, just do some design reviews there. So the captain has to make quite sure that the buildings stand. In actual fact, the building that you see at the back here, the tallest building in Cape Town, we are the engineers on it, the portside building. And then, of course, I got involved with Grand Parade right at the beginning, which was an amazing journey where we went to go and fetch nearly 20,000 shareholders, ordinary people. And today, I must say, I'm very proud to be part of this journey because we've made over 700 millionaires out of those 20,000 people, and we've paid back the investment over 30 times in terms of dividends. So you can call me a simple engineer if you want to.
Iqbal, if you can give us a little color around your life, sir.
Thanks, Bronwyn, and thank you for having me on the show. And I must say it's a real privilege to sit among such esteemed entrepreneurs and people that I've admired tremendously for their contribution to business and society. From my side, I'm a simple medical doctor, a sports medicine specialist. Of course, founded the Sekunjalo Group after practicing for about 10 years. And it's been a great journey. I've had a lot of fun. Business is about risk. It's about trying out new things. And we've got some really innovative businesses on our side. And I'm sure we can talk a bit more about it later on. But yeah. Thanks for
so we have a simple engineer, a simple doctor, and we have a CEO with 3 degrees under his belt. You did them all simultaneously, did you, Arnold?
Almost, yes. Simple engineer number 2. I did mechanical engineering, Arnold Goldstone. And then I did what's called a conversion course at UCT, and then I did BCom honours after that, so I accumulated the degrees as I've gone along. And just as a matter of interest, I cracked first year of medicine during my second year of engineering as well. So there we go.
That makes it 4 degrees at this stage.
Yeah, 3.5 degrees. And then after that, I did my articles with what was called Pete Marwick in those days, and now KPMG. Ended up doing a little bit of consulting for them, and then joined Invicta virtually immediately. It wasn't called Invicta then. So that was 23 years ago. I started off on the financial side. I was financial manager, and then became CEO in 2000, and I've been there for 13 years as CEO. And just yesterday announced that I'm going to become Executive Deputy Chairman over time. So moving on up the corporate ladder, to quote you a little bit earlier. So yeah, that's the background, engineering and CA. So nice combination in the world that Invicta operates in.
And some insight into Mr. Mustaq Brey.
Chartered accountant by training, didn't come easily. I did my training by UNISA. I was in a full-time university. I was a partner in Friedberg Miller Group for about 5 years, then went out to go set up my own practice in 1985, Embraer and Associates. And by the time I left there in 1997, I developed that into a national practice. Partners, 16 partners nationally, 200 staff, offices in Cape Town, Johannesburg, Kimberley, PE, and Durban. And then I met my friend and colleague, Fred Robertson, in 1995, and we started Brimstone, and I had to make a choice. And I moved on to Brimstone, and that's where I am.
Gentlemen, you've won many awards among the 4 of you. But I'm going to start with the most recent. Hassan, you've just come back from Johannesburg, where you were named Exceptional Entrepreneur of the Year at the Ernst & Young Entrepreneur of the Year Africa category. You'll be going to Monte Carlo. Tell us a little bit more about that moment.
Yeah, I must be very honest with you. You know, when I was nominated, I thought to myself, what am I doing with awards at my age, you know? But it was an exceptional experience, I must say. You know, I was just telling you earlier on that it was like sitting in a classroom with a whole lot of kids, and you're one of those kids, and the teacher asks a question, everybody puts up their hand, and teacher, I'm first, I want to answer the question. So it's that sort of energy.
Well, let's continue with this theme, what it takes to be a successful entrepreneur. And Mustaq, I'm going to throw it back to you. Before the broadcast, we were chatting, and you said to me one thing, and that is hard work.
Simple, hard work. You've got to put in the hours, you've got to put in the time. There are no shortcuts in life. Hard work, dedication, and you've got to take the chances you've got. Well, look around now. The current generation has got so many more opportunities than what we had 30, 40 years ago when I was a student. And they should really take the chances now and work hard. You've got to work hard, you've got to be honest about it, and you've got to work to whatever you're doing, you've got to do correctly. There's no shortcuts in it.
All right, now let's unpack, Iqbal, hard work. What are we talking about? Let's put it into hours and days and months and years.
Look, I think it depends on the person, first of all. I mean, you can have many different interests. I mean, I chair the Graduate School of Business at UCT. I'm involved in the World Economic Forum. I'm involved in so many different things. So the amount of time that you spend on business, it's not so much, in my view, the time that you spend. I probably spend 50% of my time on business, but when I'm doing that, I make sure that I'm highly efficient in my decision-making process. So you tend to develop a sense of decision-making very quickly. You look at the nonsense very quickly, and you understand what is important. You prioritize, and I think that's the key. For me, it's working smarter, more efficiently, rather than from a point of view working longer.
Arnold, you mentioned the corporate ladder and successfully climbing that corporate ladder. What does it take?
You know, I'm reminded of, if any of you have read the book called Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell, he has a theory that you need to spend 10,000 hours doing whatever it is, whether it's medicine, whether, to rise in your field. And I subscribe to that. There is no easy shortcut. If you are fortunate in that you can rise above the day-to-day mundanities, then yes, you may be in a fortunate position later on to be able to spend your time on the things that perhaps require less doing work. But there's no substitute. You need to grind away. Imagine if you were, just to use medical as an example, if you had a choice of going to a doctor, a brain surgeon who spent 10,000 hours doing his work versus somebody who only spent 1,000 hours, who are you going to choose? You're going to choose the 10,000 hour guy because he's the guy that's put in the effort. And there's no shortcut. In my early days when I was doing my articles, for example, and it looks like an article clerk and plus type audience here. Those were 10, 12 hours a day.
It looks like. Do I ask you to unpack that, or shall we just move swiftly on?
I said plus. So those were 12-hour days. They were getting to work early in the morning, working late, working weekends. There is no substitute for that. And especially in the early days when you're hungry, I mean, that to me is also important. When you're not hungry, what's the point? Why do you have to get up at 4 to be at the airport at 5 for a 6 o'clock flight, if you can do it later? So there's hunger involved, but to me there's no substitute for the long, hard work and the hours.
How much does luck have to do with it, Hassan? Right time, right place.
Well, you're speaking to a gambling man here.
Wrong question.
I tell you, now you're going to go into an hour debate on luck, and I'd rather luck aside, I wanted to say that, for me, everybody asks me, how do you do it? I'm like one of those serial entrepreneurs. I have so many businesses that people ask me, how do you do it? I actually don't do it. I have people around me who does all the work. And no, that's a fact. I think that, if you are able to delegate with authority, you can get away with murder, okay? So the point I'm trying to make is, and I want to tell you a story about a guy I met in Malaysia, a mogul. He's one of the richest guys in Malaysia. And he said to me one day, after I had spoken to him, and I said to him, Ananda, how can you make all of this money? You know, he owns the Twin Towers, he owns Petronas, he owns just about everything. And he said to me, I'm going to teach you a lesson, okay? But you mustn't forget it, and it's going to make you wealthy, not rich.
I'm listening.
He said, you know, invest in people. And when you invest in them, trust them. And whilst you trust them, make quite sure that you only deal with the fire and not with the smoke. Because the moment you deal with the smoke, you become the employee, not the employer. So that's my philosophy.
And I've written it down for future reference. Delegate with authority and you can get away with murder. I'm going to be quoting that often on the news desk down the line. What do you think, Iqbal?
No, I think Hassan is right. Delegation is important. And again, it depends. You know, if you corporatized your business, if you're an entrepreneur, it's difficult to delegate if you're risk-taking. You have to surround yourself with people that want to take risks, that understand your kind of thinking, your innovation. You know, we've just gone to Mozambique. We've done very well. I was telling Arnold in the gas sector. And if you had spoken to me maybe a year ago, and I said, oh my goodness, you know, we've just lost a lot of money there, but we were lucky, yes. You know, so I mean, but it's calculated luck. You know, as someone also said to me one day that luck is something that you think about afterwards. Yeah.
Serial entrepreneur Hassan also mentions, and we've got to point out from the Sekunjalo Group, 130 investments across Africa. You are partners to Siemens, Nokia, and BT in their Africa operations. Serial entrepreneur?
So we have different parts of the group. So we have a corporate part of the group, which is unlisted, which is shareholder of Siemens in Africa, you know, British Telecom, Saab, etc. And those are the multinational partnerships we have. Then we have our own businesses that we operate and run, which is sometimes a lot of fun. And then we have the what I call the unlisted holding company, which does a lot of stuff in oil and gas on the continent. It's been one of the first, in fact, to go into the continent. Now the unlisted also has the media asset.
We're going to unpack the independent group a little later in the discussion.
So it's I guess, you know, different parts of the groups have got different expertise, and that's the key, to choose the people in each area. That you know, the listed company guys, they like running businesses. Sometimes they're successful, sometimes they're not. The unlisted guys are looking all the time at private equity transactions. We have our own capital base, which is great, and the fund that we manage is also you know, different kind of people. So it all depends. You know, people are always on the lookout. I've got a hungry team. They understand we like to take risk. You know, we're risk takers, and it's calculated. We look at the macro environment. We look at industry, and what Hassan said is important. We look at the people that we partner on the continent. So yeah.
We'll be right back after this quick break with more insight into what it takes to become a successful captain of industry. Investing in people is the key to business success. That's the consensus among the panellists at Investec's Captains of Industry event, recently held in Cape Town.
You come back to people, and a number of captains of industry on this show keep repeating that fact. You need to surround yourself with the right people, the right teams. How important in your life, Arnold?
Absolutely important. I think the only way you build wealth over time is to invest in people. You know, you can take a mediocre product and you can turn it into a super product by using clever people. You can take the best product and it can fail if you have the wrong people. So without a doubt, if you surround yourself with competent people and you know how to monitor them and check what they're doing, you know, so you trust them, as we've said earlier here, but also you need to know how to monitor them, how to push them, what buttons to press. You know, everybody has aspirations. Some people like being soldiers, some people like being copywriters, others like being the guys out there in the field doing pioneering work like Iqbal and Hassan, where they are more entrepreneurial. Others prefer to be in the safe zone. But importantly, you need to surround yourself with the right people and know what science to read.
Mustaq, what about retaining that talent?
Well, I think firstly you've got to employ the right people, right? And quite often you've got to employ people that are smarter than you. If you want the longevity of your company, you've got to employ people that are better qualified than you, right? And then you've got to tie them in. And the way you can tie them in is with share options. You make them part of the plans going forward. You make sure that there's a long earn-out period, and they can grow their wealth in that time. But they've got to be smart, and they've got to be hungry, and they've got to be prepared to do the work. You can set the guidelines. You can set the moral issues. All of those things that you laid down. The way you want business done, that's your problem. Right?
But you need to tie them in.
You need to tie them in. You've got to break them part of the water grid. And we've learned over the years as well, partnering with good management in operational businesses, making those management part of the shareholders. It's worked wonders for us. I mean, at a place like Life Healthcare, we had 12,000 staff who were shareholders. We paid out more than 500 million rand to them after 5 years. Right?
And that works. It reduces churn.
Absolutely works. It reduces churn. You've got to tie in with the people. We made more than R1 billion for management in that place as well. You've got them tied in. It can work.
Let's continue with this theme. Retaining good people. Hassan, what do you do? Is it a similar model to what Mustaq does?
Look, I have a very simple philosophy. When there's disagreement, it forces you to listen, and I think what is important is to listen to your staff and not to be thinking that you know it all. I think what is most important is how you engage with them thereafter, and I think that's our success story. You've got to understand that GPI started everything from first base. We didn't inherit the portfolio. We started everything from Burger Kings to slots to casinos. I mean, when we built the casino, they put me in charge of this whole 2 billion rand project, and I had to deliver it in 11 months as an engineer. But you get your head down and you work with people. And when you work with people, you must understand one thing, that they're not the same as you, but you've got to listen to them. And if you listen to them, you have to engage with them.
You mentioned earlier, Iqbal, that we are all different. How do you cater for that within your teams?
So I think a good way of thinking about it is that you have 3 missions in business. The first is the profit and wealth mission. So some people are very focused on that. I guess most people in the corporate world, want to create wealth and profit, and that's how you measure it in the business sector. The second mission is a mission of innovation around product and service solutions. Some people are immensely attracted to that. We have 9 IT investments, incredible people, about 100 software engineers. They're not interested necessarily in the profit up front. They want to develop. They want to understand. They want to be given the resources to develop. And lastly, I guess I fall kind of in all 3. But in particular, the last area is about social impact. It's about impacting on society changes, whether it be employment, whether it be job creation, changing the understanding of how we see each other, leaving a legacy for the future. So different people emphasize different one of those 3 missions. So the profit mission, the social impact mission, and the innovation and solution, that kind of mission. So you must understand, this is very important, in your businesses you must understand what drives your person that is working with you. Some people are more driven to the profit motive. Put them in that business that's essentially profit driven. Some people are driven towards the innovation motive. Put them there. And the others that are socially inclined or social enterprise inclined or social impact inclined, give them the comfort zone and the support in order to achieve that.
From a corporate perspective, let's get your insight, Arnold.
The key is to read what the buttons are to press. As I said before, some people are soldiers, some are happy to sit behind a desk and work. That's all they want. They want safety and security. Some people are socially driven, so you try and put them into an entrepreneurial environment, and they just are uncomfortable. The key is to understand what makes people tick. And it's nice in theory, but it's very difficult to make it in practice. And we've all had failures. I'm sure we've all appointed people we
You
shouldn't
bring
have.
me to the next point, because you're all making it sound very, very
No,
easy,
it's not easy.
to be the heroes of today. I think we've got to go now to the challenges and the mistakes so that we all feel as though you are human at the end of it. Mustaq, let's start with you. The biggest challenge that you've faced in your career?
At Brimstone, probably in 1999, after the market collapsed. We listed Brimstone in 1998. Market collapsed 1 month after we listed. September 1998, it was a major correction. Our share price went down from 6 Rand a share. It went right down to 1.50 Rand, right? Our NAV was 2.50 Rand, and then the wolves are out there to destroy us. They came and said to us, our partner Fred said, you'll concur with me, why don't we just delist the company, take it off the market? We had 200.
This is 1 month after listing.
1 month after listing, yeah. We listed, and by that December, they were prepared to close us down. They said, look, why could we just buy it off the market? delisted, we'll make 150 million rand profits. Management will take 75 million, and out, and the guy came with the idea. He said, "You'll take the 75 million," and that's the end of Brimstone. And I said to Fred and myself, we had a discussion. I said, "Look, we don't want to leave Cape Town. We took money from shareholders on the Cape Flats. If we run away with their money, we'll have to leave Cape Town." It wasn't a good option at that stage, right?
I don't think so.
Yeah, and what we in actual fact did, and then Fred came up with it, and he coined something. He said, "Look," and we were taught by our late chairman as well, Jake Scherwel, rather do something to yourself before somebody does it to you, because then you got control. We then decided, and we sold off 290 million rands worth of assets, and we returned the 290 million rand to shareholders. Then we weren't attractive anymore. Then they said, "No, but the money's all gone. Now it's not attractive. The assets are all gone." And our share price went right down to 20 cents. I then coined and I said to Fred, we're now trading at 5 for a rand. I mean, that's what happened to us. But we decided we're going to rebuild it from the base. Our market cap went down to about 40 billion rand. Today we're more than 4 billion rand. That's after unbundling another 4 billion rand of assets to our shareholders. But we were right down to 40 million rand. And we picked up the pieces, and it was a great pain to ourselves.
Was it difficult to pick up the pieces?
It was extremely difficult. Fred, Lauren, myself, my partners, right? We had a management contract. That management contract, we were earning about 3 million rand a year. We had to forego it. It was gone. It was 1% of asset value. We returned 300 million to shareholders, and therefore that was gone. We had to build it up from scratch again. But we said, look, let's walk the long road. We knew black economic empowerment was going to be a marathon and not a sprint. And it still is. And we said, look, let's build up the pieces again. So we were at the right there to be destroyed completely, and we came back, and God's been good to us.
Big challenge. Hassan, can you beat that?
Well, Grand Parade Investments, or GPI, is people-orientated, okay? We're probably one of the broadest-based empowerment companies in the country, and we started that before the word broad-based black empowerment was ever invented, okay? It's just that we had a passion to go out to people who didn't have and try and create wealth for them. Now, at the beginning, when we went around, we raised 28 million rand. Great journey. You know how quickly we raised that. People put all their savings into our coffers, and they trusted us. And before we know it, we could buy the first tranche of our cash drawdown at 4.25% for 28 million rand. Well, then disaster struck, because the next round came, and we thought, wow, we look like a great company. And the next cash drawdown came for another 28 million. And we said, well, we'll go to the bank and borrow it. But, we also learned at that time that banks offer you an umbrella only when the sun is out, So we, as a black empowerment company, and I'm sure that Mustaq and everybody else can tell you, it was very difficult to raise capital. Eventually, with the gun to our head, we had to take a loan of 28 million rand at 35% interest. 35%. And that was a pref. When I spoke to Trevor Manuel about it, he said, that's criminal. They can't do that, I said, well, you get me a bank to give me the money, and I'll kiss you on both cheeks. And we suffered after that. In 2003, we were declared insolvent by auditing practice called Quasar 4, and that's when I took over. Kicked down the door at Sun International. I said, this is unacceptable, we're being set up for failure here. And I then took it over, got the whole loan restructured, and we never looked back after that. And I made a promise to all of those shareholders that we'll become a dividend active company. And we've paid them dividends since 2003 till now, and exceptional dividends, So our journey hasn't been easy. It's been quite hectic at times, because when the company started to do well, lo and behold, I didn't know that there were predators, all of these fund managers in every corner of the street, and trying to gobble up our shares from these poor shareholders who didn't know what the value of their share was. So what do? Everybody's talking about an OTC and all sorts of funny ways to protect the shareholders. Eventually, the only way out was to list. Now, to list was another problem. How do I list a company where our major asset is sitting with Sun International? Eventually, I had to go and do a deal with the boys from Dorp Street to sell me 30% of Real Africa. Didn't have the money, but they came to the party big time. Wonderful people. I'm not going to mention names. And that's how we listed the company. I can't say that I have found it very difficult. I have found it very rewarding. Very, very rewarding.
Iqbal, any words you would like to share with us?
You know, failure is a very necessary part of learning. And the key thing about failure, in my view, is, you know, don't take yourself seriously, first of all. And don't take the business seriously. It's not life.
Beautifully summarized. Gentlemen, thank you so much for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure. A round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. Fantastic panel. And that brings us to the end of our Captains of Industry Insights here at Investec in Cape Town. Thank you so much for joining us. Until next time.